Okay, so you're diving into these LLMs everyone's talking about, and you want to get specific outputs from them.
Right.
Like really customized stuff.
Right.
Who doesn't these days? But have you ever felt like you're talking to a wall, like you're speaking a different language, trying to get the AI to do what you want?
Yeah.
You're tweaking the prompt endlessly.
Yeah.
And you're just getting an answer that's almost there, but not quite.
It's so common.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this research you shared with me on requirement-oriented prompt engineering,
Okay.
it gets to the heart of it.
ROPE.
Yeah.
All right, before we get all tied up in knots,
Okay.
what is that?
So imagine you're trying to build a house.
Yeah.
Like you're commissioning a custom house.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to tell the architect, I want a house, surprise me. You're going to give incredibly detailed specifications.
Yeah.
This is kind of about treating your prompts with that same level of precision,
Okay.
especially for what the researchers are calling LLM hard tasks.
LLM hard.
Yeah.
Like asking a calculator to compose a symphony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
LLMs, they're amazing at what they're trained on,
Right.
but these highly customized requests,
Yeah.
those require a different approach.
So give me an example of something that's LLM hard. Like what kind of thing would fall into that bucket?
So let's say you want an LLM to act like a hyper-personalized TripAdvisor.
Right.
So you tell it all your preferences,
Mm-hmm.
and boom, instant itinerary.
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds pretty good.
But think about all the hidden requirements there. Like how many follow-up questions should the AI ask if you're vague about dates?
Right.
How should the output be formatted? Should it be a list, a paragraph, a map with pins?
Yeah.
People just consistently underestimate the level of detail required.
For even something that seems that straightforward.
Yeah.
How?
It's not just the what, it's also the how,
Yeah.
like how you want the output to actually look.
Okay. So it's not just what you're asking for, it's how you want it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the researchers, they tested this
Okay.
by having people create prompts for different tasks.
Mm.
One of them was to recreate simple games,
Okay.
like Connect 4 Tic-Tac-Toe.
So things that you think would be fairly easy to specify.
Exactly.
Yeah, you think those rules are pretty basic,
Yeah, you'd think so.
right?
But even then, like telling the AI to make sure the winning cells are crossed out visually,
Okay.
or if there's no winner display this message, tie game,
Yeah.
that level of precision tripped people up constantly.
Yeah.
They just didn't think about it.
So we're all naturally bad at this requirement articulation thing.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get better at that? Is there like a prompting 101 course I can take?
Well, that's the fascinating part of the research. They actually designed specialized training
Okay.
to help people level up this very skill.
Training for talking to AI. All right. I am intrigued. Tell me more.
Yeah. Imagine you're teaching someone a new board game,
Okay.
and they can only learn by watching you play.
Okay.
You would probably point out key moves along the way.
Yeah, of course.
Like, this is why you lost.
Yeah.
That would have been a better strategy.
Oh, absolutely. If they're anything like me, I need all the help I can get.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This ROPE training is similar.
Yeah.
They created this feedback loop
Mm-hmm.
where someone would write a prompt, see what the LLM does with it,
Yeah.
and then refine it based on the results.
Oh, so very hands-on,
Very iterative.
very iterative.
Okay.
And they experimented with different types of feedback.
Okay.
Simple textual hints, like just telling people to be more specific.
Right.
That helped a little, but not much.
Okay.
What really made a difference was showing people side-by-side examples.
So, like, here's your amateur prompt, and here's what the pros write.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But by far the most effective technique
Okay.
was what they called counterfactual.
Counterfactuals.
So imagine you write a requirement for that Connect 4 game.
And you say something like, use keys to move the pieces.
Yeah, seems straightforward enough.
Sounds okay, right?
Yeah.
But what if you don't specify which keys or how they control the pieces?
Right.
The researchers would actually show people the messed up game that resulted.
No.
Pieces flying off screen, dropping in the wrong columns.
What a nightmare.
Total disaster.
So instead of just saying be more specific, they're showing you the consequences
Exactly.
of what happens when you're not.
It makes it much more visceral.
Wow. That's really clever.
Yeah, and because it was game-based,
Right.
they could really highlight those mismatches. Like you said, use keys to move, but you didn't say which ones, and look what happened.
Yeah, you get total chaos.
Exactly.
Okay, so this three-pronged approach, hints examples,
Mhm.
counterfactuals,
Mm-hmm.
did it actually work?
It did.
People were able to write better prompts after this ROPE training.
Yes. significantly better
Wow.
than those who just practiced with the LLM on their own without that structured feedback.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really highlights the value of focusing specifically on this requirement articulation as a skill.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So for those of us who are just starting to explore LLMs, what are the big takeaways here? What do we really need to remember? So for those of us who are just starting to explore LLMs, what are the big takeaways here? What do we really need to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. There's a big difference between casual prompts,
Okay.
like asking for a recipe,
Right.
and these more complex LLM hard tasks,
Mm-hmm.
like building a whole app.
Right.
It's like the difference between asking for directions and handing someone a blueprint to build a skyscraper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you hit a wall with an LLM,
Yeah.
ask yourself, am I asking for something that the AI can reasonably be expected to just know?
Right.
Or am I asking for something very specific, very unique to my needs?
Okay, so if it's the latter, that's when we put on our
Yeah.
requirement articulation hats.
Exactly.
Okay.
Don't rush that prompt writing process.
Mm-hmm.
Really think deeply about what the ideal output would be.
Yeah.
What are the absolute must-haves?
Yeah.
What could go wrong if you're not specific enough?
So don't be afraid to get super granular, like really spell it out,
Yes.
even if it feels a bit silly.
Exactly. And remember, LLMs are still learning.
Yeah.
The more precise your communication, the better the results. That makes sense.
Don't be afraid to experiment,
Okay?
to iterate,
Right.
to refine your prompts as you go.
So it's almost like we're all becoming AI whisperers.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning to speak their language.
Yeah.
Who knew there was so much depth to a simple prompt?
It's a whole new world of communication.
It really is.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe someday we won't have to be quite so precise.
Right.
Imagine LLMs that can understand our intent even from a poorly worded request.
Now that is a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
AI that meets us halfway
Right.
fills in the gaps in our communication.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we have reached the end of our deep dive for today. Thank you so much for joining me
It's been my pleasure.
and for sharing your expertise on this really interesting world of ROPE and prompt engineering.
Happy to be here.
And for you listening, we leave you with this. We've talked about training humans to speak AI,
Mm-hmm.
but could we train LLMs to understand us better?
That's the question.
Even our flawed, sometimes vague human speak. Keep that question in mind as you explore the world of AI and all it has to offer. Until next time, keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep diving deep.